Daredevil Dive at Six Flags Over Georgia is a solid Gerstlauer Eurofighter. This Daredevil-themed coaster features the usual Beyond vertical drop, but it also features a few thematic structures and 3 different inversions. The ride is fun, but it's a bit of an odd choice at a Six Flags park, and I'll explain why in this review. Six Flags is no stranger to gimmicks, so something like a Gerstlauer Eurofighter with a Beyond vertical drop seemed like something they'd be interested in. However, there was one issue. These rides did not have the highest capacity. Their trains typically seat just 8 riders. That capacity could work at a smaller Six Flags park. In fact, it does with Tantrum at Six Flags Darien Lake, but would be a nightmare at a larger Six Flags park. So when Six Flags Over Georgia added Daredevil Dive in 2011, they did change the capacity. They took 2 riders away? So each car now seats just 6 riders. Oh boy. And to make matters worse, the park decided to put VR in this coaster in 2016. Virtual reality significantly slowed dispatch times across the chain that year, but was particularly catastrophic in a ride that already had a dismal throughput. Unless you visit the park on the quietest of days, this coaster usually has an hour wait. I strongly recommend riding this coaster immediately after the park opens if you want to avoid the crowds. You can alternatively use Flash Pass, and for a while this ride could only be skipped once on the highest tiers, but I believe it's now included in all tiers and can be selected multiple times. While Daredevil Dive's trains seat less riders, they are unique. They were the first Gerstlauer Eurofighter trains to feature lap bars. These ones come overhead as opposed to the newer T-bar style ones found on rides like Hydrus at Casino Pier. These are major upgrades over the over-the-shoulder restraints. They grant much more freedom, and they eliminate the risk of headbanging. Although Daredevil Dive is super smooth to begin with, so headbanging likely wouldn't have been an issue anyway. Gerstlauer is a bit weird in this department. Some of their rides are very smooth like Daredevil Dive, while others can be rattly or jostly. The cars also feature 2 across seating, rather than the usual 4 across. And the trains are flared outwards, so the view of back row riders, in theory, isn't entirely obstructed. But in actuality, I find it doesn't make much of a difference, other than giving you a little more elbow room with the rider in your row. You really need to be up front if you want the view. This train shape was only used in one other Eurofighter in Huracan at Billanthes, and I suspect it was copied for Daredevil Dive because this coaster's layout has a lot of similarities to Anubis the ride at Plopsaland. That coaster wasn't actually a Eurofighter, but it had a lot of similarities. The layout of the 2 rides are near identical, except the launch and top hat in Anubis is replaced with a lift hill and Beyond vertical drop on Daredevil Dive. I honestly never realized how similar the 2 rides were until I rode both within 2 months of each other. Daredevil Dive features red track and yellow supports, which is a familiar color scheme. The paint is a bit faded though, and then the trains sort of look like rockets due to their flared design, which fits in with the overall Daredevil theme. But the best part about this coaster's appearance are the thematic structures in the main layout. Off-ride they look decent, you have some rings you pass through, and control towers you circle around, but they really add some near misses on the ride, and that's where you really appreciate them. And when combined with the near misses formed by the ride support structure to begin with, you may find yourself lowering your hands and ducking at several points in the layout. Daredevil Dive begins with a slow turn out of the station. You then pause at the base of the lift hill for a second or 2 before beginning your ascent. You have a vertical lift of 95 feet or 29 meters into the air, which is towards the middle of the pack for Eurofighters. Once you crest the lift, you do have a somewhat nasty surprise. This ride features a trim brake at the very start of the 95-degree drop. The only other Eurofighters I've seen with trim brakes are TMNT Shellraiser at Nickelodeon Universe and Takabisha at Fuji-Q Highland, but those drops are significantly steeper, exceeding 120 degrees. Other coasters exceeding 110 degrees have featured trims too, such as the SNSL logos, but it was very surprising to see one on a Eurofighter with a drop of this angle. The airtime is a bit delayed as a result, but you still get a very strong ejector airtime burst roughly 3/4 of the way down the drop. And since you have just lap bars, the airtime does feel a little bit stronger than most other Eurofighters. You then get back-to-back near misses, arguably the two best on the ride. While cruising at the ride's max speed of 52 miles per hour or 84 kilometers per hour, you charge through some rings and then duck under a piece of track. And you also get good positive Gs here as well. Then comes the dive loop. As you sharply rotate the apex of the element, you get a nice upside down pop of airtime before diving back down to the ground, rebuilding positive Gs in the way. This may be my favorite inversion on the ride. You then navigate this hybrid top hat and overbank. The shaping of the element is weird, and unfortunately, it doesn't really offer any forces. The pullout blasts you with more positive Gs though, and then you rip through an Immelmann. This inversion is the weakest of the three because it doesn't offer any positives nor hang time, but it is fast and disorienting with the way it twists. The pullout features an awesome near miss with the support, and then you bank upwards into the mid-course brake run. My 2021 rides barely slowed me down, so you then twist into the second half with some speed. The curving drop of the brake run doesn't do too much though, nor does the bunny hill that follows. You then shoot into a tunnel, which features a surprisingly forceful turn that offers a rapid surge of positive Gs. You then emerge into the daylight and coast through a super slow and elongated barrel roll. You get oodles of hang time thanks to the lap bars and the slowness of the element. Gerstlauer really does these slow inversions extremely well. There's a reason they made my top inversions list. You then hop into the brake run, ending the 2,099 foot or 640 meter long coaster. So what would I rate Daredevil Dive? I would give this Gerstlauer Eurofighter a 7 out of 10. This coaster has a solid layout. I like the first drop and 2 of the 3 inversions. And this coaster holds its speed pretty well for a ride with shorter cars. I also like the mix of near misses scattered about the ride. I think this is a slightly above average Eurofighter because of the lap bars and more diverse layout. Plus, it's one of the better coasters overall at Six Flags Over Georgia. Really, the ride's biggest weakness is its capacity, which isn't necessarily a fault of the ride itself. Daredevil Dive was the only Eurofighter Six Flags ever built themselves. If you're wondering about Tantrum at Darien Lake, Six Flags inherited that ride from the prior regime. Six Flags has rarely worked with Gerstlauer over the past decade. Part of it may have been the capacity on these Eurofighters, but it also could be the fallout from the fatal accident on New Texas Giant at Six Flags Over Texas. That was an RMC coaster, but the ride used Gerstlauer trains. I wouldn't mind seeing more Eurofighters added to Six Flags' smaller parks such as Great Escape. These are relatively cheap thrill coasters that offer solid layouts, but I do not want to see these added to any more major parks due to their throughput, as evidenced by the queue times at Six Flags Over Georgia. So those are my thoughts on Daredevil Dive at Six Flags Over Georgia. What are your thoughts on the Gerstlauer Eurofighter? Do you wish Six Flags built more coasters like it? Let me know your thoughts on this ride down in the comments. If you enjoyed this review, I'd appreciate it if you gave this video a like, and you considered subscribing, because there'll be a lot more roller coaster and amusement park videos here at Canopy Coaster. Thanks for watching.